Imagine a man sitting at his kitchen table at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. His face is illuminated by the harsh light of his laptop screen. He owns 20 rental units. He has 3 different LLCs. He has a massive spreadsheet detailing his cash-on-cash returns, his depreciation schedules, and his highly optimized tax strategies. When he goes to dinner parties, people look at him with awe. They call him a real estate mogul. They ask him for advice. But at this exact moment, at 2 a.m., he is paralyzed by a silent, suffocating panic. The bank is raising interest rates on his adjustable-rate commercial loans. The roof on property number 4 just collapsed, and the tenants in property number 7 haven't paid rent in 3 months. His entire empire is built on leverage. He owes millions of dollars to the bank, and his cash reserves are bleeding out. He is technically a multimillionaire on paper, but internally, his nervous system is entirely destroyed. Now, I want you to imagine a second man. This man lives in a modest, unglamorous suburban house. He drives a 7-year-old Toyota. He owns absolutely zero physical real estate outside of the house he sleeps in. He has never negotiated a commercial loan. He has never dealt with an eviction. Instead, he automatically deducts 20% of his income every single month and funnels it into a total stock market index fund. He has done this unconditionally, rain or shine, for the last 15 years. At 2 a.m. on this exact same Tuesday, this second man is fast asleep. His heart rate is slow. His mind is at peace. When the market drops, he doesn't care because his timeline is measured in decades. The first man built his life on the philosophy of rich dad, poor dad. The second man built his life on the psychology of money. For the last 25 years, the personal finance world has been dominated by a single, loud, aggressive ideology. It was sparked by a purple book that told you the middle class is trapped in a rat race, that your house is not an asset, and that the only way to true freedom is to use good debt to acquire cash-producing real estate. It was a brilliant awakening. It shattered the illusion of the traditional 9-to-5 path. But it also accidentally created an entire generation of highly stressed, over-leveraged adrenaline junkies who traded one rat race for a much more dangerous one. Then, a few years ago, a quiet, unassuming book called The Psychology of Money was published. It didn't offer a get-rich-quick formula. It didn't tell you how to leverage debt. In fact, it told you that doing well with money has very little to do with how smart you are, and almost everything to do with how you behave. It presented a terrifying, undeniable truth. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are 2 completely different games. Getting wealthy requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But staying wealthy requires the exact opposite. It requires paranoia. It requires a deep, fundamental humility. It requires the acceptance that what you have made can be taken away from you in an instant if you let your ego control your spreadsheet. So, which path actually works in the real world? Which philosophy will actually buy you your freedom, and which one will just build you a more expensive prison? Let us dissect the blueprint of the hustler, the disciple of the purple book. If you follow the rich dad philosophy to its ultimate conclusion, you are taught that leverage is a tool for the elite. You are taught that saving cash is for losers, because inflation will eat your savings. You are told to borrow money from the bank, use it to buy a physical asset, use the income from that asset to pay down the debt, and pocket the difference. Mathematically, it is flawless. But practically, biologically, it ignores the human toll. When you build a portfolio of leveraged physical assets, you are not just buying cash flow. You are buying complexity. You are buying maintenance, legal liabilities, tenant psychology, and absolute dependence on macroeconomic interest rates that you cannot control. The rich dad path promises you passive income, but the reality is deeply aggressively active. You become an operator. You spend your weekends arguing with contractors. You spend your evenings looking at Zillow. Your brain becomes hardwired to constantly look for the next deal, the next flip, the next syndication. You successfully escaped your corporate boss, but you accidentally became an employee to your own portfolio. And the most dangerous part of this path is what it does to your ego. When you use leverage to buy a $2 million apartment complex, society treats you like a genius. Your net worth on paper explodes. You start dressing differently. You start talking differently. You start believing that you are a master of the universe. You convince yourself that because you succeeded in a bull market, you are invincible. But leverage is a double-edged sword. It amplifies your gains, but it ruthlessly, violently amplifies your losses. When the economic winter comes, and it always comes, the debt does not care about your ego. The debt demands to be fed. This is where the Purple Book philosophy breaks people. It pushes them so far out on the risk curve that a single unforeseen event, a global pandemic, a sudden spike in interest rates, a local economic downturn, can wipe out a decade of hard work in a matter of months. Now, let us walk into the shadows and look at the blueprint of the Stoic, the disciple of the psychology of money. This path is rooted in a concept that the internet gurus absolutely despise: stealth wealth. The core thesis of this path is that wealth is not what you see. Wealth is what you do not see. Wealth is the $60,000 luxury car not purchased. Wealth is the Rolex left in the display case. Wealth is the massive, stressful real estate deal you walked away from because you preferred to sleep well at night. Society judges success by outward displays of consumption. If someone drives a Ferrari, we assume they are rich. But the Stoic understands that the only thing you know for sure about the guy driving the Ferrari is that he has $300,000 less in his bank account than he did before he bought it. Or worse, he is chained to a suffocating monthly payment. The psychology of money path teaches you that the ultimate financial superpower is not leverage. It is not financial modeling. It is the ability to stop the goalpost from moving. It is the psychological discipline to earn more money and willfully, deliberately choose not to upgrade your lifestyle. When the Stoic gets a $20,000 raise at work, they do not move to a nicer apartment. They do not buy a nicer wardrobe. They take that $20,000 and they quietly slide it into a broad market index fund. They are creating a gap, the gap between their ego and their income. And in that gap, true freedom is born. When you invest in an index fund, it is incredibly boring. There is no adrenaline. You cannot go to a dinner party and brag about your Vanguard S&P 500 holdings. Nobody cares. But look at the reality of that asset. It requires zero maintenance. It requires zero contractors. It does not call you at 3 a.m. because the toilet is leaking. It is perfectly liquid, meaning if you need cash on a Tuesday, you can have it by Wednesday without paying a real estate agent a 6% commission. You are harnessing the collective output of the greatest companies on earth, and you are doing it in absolute silence. But the greatest benefit of the Stoic path is what it does to your nervous system. When you have zero debt, a low cost of living, and a massive piles of liquid capital quietly compounding in the background, you become bulletproof. You do not fear the economic winter, you welcome it. Because when the market crashes, you are not fighting off margin calls. You are not begging the bank for an extension. You are simply taking your surplus cash and buying pieces of the global economy at a massive discount. You are standing completely still while everyone else is running for the exits. So, which path actually works? The truth is, both paths work, but they buy you entirely different things. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a phenomenal textbook for learning how to acquire money. It teaches you the mechanics of capitalism. It teaches you to stop trading your time for a paycheck and start acquiring things that produce cash. If you are 22 years old, completely broke, and trapped in a victim mindset, you need to read the Purple Book. You need the aggression. You need the wake-up call. You need to understand that the system is a game, and you have to learn the rules of the game if you want to stop being a pawn. But if you stop there, the game will eventually destroy you. If you only study the mechanics of acquiring wealth, but you never study the psychology of retaining wealth, you will inevitably fly too close to the sun. You will leverage yourself into oblivion because your ego will demand a bigger empire. To actually win the game of capitalism, you have to graduate. You have to use the mechanics of Rich Dad to get off the ground, but you must adopt the philosophy of the psychology of money to survive the flight. You must realize that the ultimate goal of money is not to buy a bigger house or to build a massive, complex portfolio that strokes your ego. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. It is the ability to buy back your time, your autonomy, and your peace of mind. If your real estate portfolio requires you to work 60 hours a week managing it, you are not wealthy. You are just a highly paid property manager. If your massive tech startup requires you to answer to a board of directors and panic over quarterly metrics, you are not wealthy. You are a hostage in a glass office. True wealth is the 5 p.m. disconnect. It is the ability to close your laptop, wash your hands, and have your mind be completely, beautifully empty of financial anxiety. It is waking up on a Wednesday morning, checking your brokerage account, seeing that the market dropped 3% and feeling absolutely nothing. To achieve this, you have to undergo a massive ego starvation. You have to accept that, to the outside world, you might look like you are falling behind. You have to be okay with driving a boring car while your friends lease luxury SUVs. You have to be okay with renting a modest apartment while your coworkers sign suffocating mortgages. You have to let them win the game of prestige so you can quietly win the game of freedom. You have to fall in love with the terrifying power of doing nothing. In a world obsessed with optimization, side hustles, and constant motion, sitting still is an act of rebellion. When you set up your automated investments, when you build your quiet cash flow machine, the hardest part is not interfering with it. Your brain will beg you to tinker. It will beg you to sell when the news is bad. It will beg you to buy the shiny new crypto token when your friends are making money. You must practice the emotionless rep. You must look at your phone, acknowledge the panic or the greed, and let it pass through you like a ghost. You stick to the boring plan. You let the glacier move, because a glacier doesn't care about the news cycle. It doesn't care about Twitter trends. It just quietly, relentlessly carves the mountain. 10 years from now, the guy who leveraged everything to build a real estate empire might have a higher net worth than you. He might be on the cover of a magazine, but you will have something he will never, ever have. You will have an empty calendar. You will have a nervous system that is completely healed from the fight or flight response of the modern economy. You will be a secret millionaire in training, walking through the world entirely undetected. Stop trying to be the rich dad. Stop trying to look impressive. Take the ego, the leverage, and the hustle and throw them in the garbage. Embrace the shadows. Let your wealth be entirely invisible. Let your life be profoundly peaceful. Because the moment you realize you don't need society's applause to feel successful is the exact moment you become truly unstoppable. I'm Henry. Welcome to The Boring Path,